Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm Juan Ayala, and welcome to Actors with Issues. Each week, we bring you interviews with actors from across TV, film, and Broadway, taking many deep dives into their careers and getting into the successes, the struggles, and of course, the issues that they face as actors. That's enough about us. Let's dive into the episode. Today's guest is a writer, producer, and director and the creative mind behind Mr. Crockett, one of the many amazing short films part of this year's Bite Size Halloween on Hulu. Please welcome to the stage Brandon Espy. Brandon, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Juan.
So before we dive into the short and everything, we always start with a quick rapid fire game. Just throw some quick questions your way. We'll start with an easy one. Coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Film or television?
film,
Drama or comedy?
comedy,
Hero or villain?
villain,
What movie never fails to make you laugh?
airplane,
And what movie never fails to make you cry?
goofy movie.
Good choice. What filmmaker has had the biggest influence on you?
John Carpenter,
And lastly, favorite horror movie?
The Thing.
Good choice. So, before we get into the film, I just want to get a little bit of some background on you. So, I know you were an athlete all throughout college, but when did your love of filmmaking and the arts, when did all that begin?
Yeah, I played football in college and I tore my Achilles and then I shifted. I became a model, and then progressed to actor. So I was on the front of the camera and I just realized like certain limitations in general as far as control, and that was like a big thing for me.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm a dude who just like went through college and stuff, I gotta have more say in something. And so I was like, the only way I could get that is if I hopped on the other side and started creating. And so about I say about 8 years ago is when I started really experimenting with writing, and filmmaking. But at first it was comedy. That's how I learned what screenwriting was, through comedy, and then started testing out some dramas, but realizing that, I have this true passion for horror, but like I always loved it, but never really super leaned into it because, I was an athlete. Like what at this time, like what athlete likes horror, like that, that wasn't what my friends were watching at the time. And so I was kind of like the only person doing that. But once I kind of just grew into my own, accepted certain things, I was like, I really love horror. And so I'd rather like lean into this genre and try to make films that, I may not have seen in certain lights. Like I'm a big fan of like Men Society, Set It Off, Above the Rim, He Got Game, certain films like that. I'm like, in certain ways I've always seen certain horror iterations of it. And so I just thought like, why don't I start trying to create movies like that I really wanted to see, and I knew a certain audience wanted to see as well, and just have fun with it.
And where on earth did you pull this idea out of? I was terrified. It's so with Mr. Crockett, it's like, with him coming out the TV, I'm thinking like The Ring, and then with the kid involved, like Child's Play with some weird messed up version of Pee-wee's Playhouse. I'm like, what on
Yeah,
earth? So where
yeah.
did this idea come from?
Came from my son. I got two kids. I got two boys, a 4-year-old and 1-year-old. And my oldest is very overactive. Like he's psychotic. He never sleeps. He will fight sleep till the end, till like midnight or so. And whenever he watches TV, he he can't hear anything else. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's him and his show. And so like that, the crazy, like I never seen anyone lock in on something like that. I'll be right here yelling at him and he won't even blink an eye.
No.
It's as if I wasn't even there. And so, but just a certain power that medium has on certain kids, and obsession that they could easily have in it, especially a kid like him. I'm like, that was my direct inspo, because that living room scene happened like, I mean, it happens like almost daily, probably, in my house. So whether it's me or my wife.
Yeah.
So I think in general, that was the inspo. And it's always that what if, like, oh, what if, because at the time he was obsessed with Blippi. What if Blippi didn't like what he saw, didn't like what he saw Brandon yelling at his son? What if he tried to do something about it? And so that's where my head kind of went with this idea. And The Ring was definitely inspo. But I just was trying to find a way I could do it to where he was actually breaking out of the TV and not just seamlessly going through. That was just like really important to me, and just seeing like hearing the sounds and hearing him, that struggle of trying to get out of this TV. I really wanted to build that in that way.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, yeah, I'm just happy that it resonated with people.
Yeah, I mean, you did it incredibly effectively. It's just so it's such a vivid image of like just like the bloody hands on the glass pushing
Mm,
up. Oh, that was so creepy. Like all of the films that are part of Hulu's Bite Size Halloween this year are so great. Like I feel like every year it's just gotten better and better, and getting to interview so many of you directors and filmmakers has been so great. And like I'm also noticing a pattern between them that pretty much every single one of them has some underlying social issue with it. And I feel like the one that I took away from this was like the struggle of this single black mother who is
mm,
just looking for this sense of peace and quiet, as you said, just like because as soon as you started talking about your own son, it reminded me of my nephew. I remember with Barney or VeggieTales, something was always blaring on the TV, and
mm.
whoever's babysitting just wants that second of peace and quiet. So, what can you speak about including that of like the struggle of this young single black mother into the story?
I say with that, like I'm lucky to have a support system with the amazing wife, but I know so many who don't have that support system
Mm,
and may have that overwhelming feeling of just dealing with the kid themselves, trying to seek an escape, trying to reach out to her sister to see if she could help. But her sister, it's hard sometimes even get people to watch your kids when they know how crazy your kid is, to maybe a lot
mm,
for them. And actually, my sister did the voiceover for this. She was actually the one on the phone, and she
yeah.
said almost the exact same thing to me before, you know. And so, because my son's a lot, and I know it.
Mm,
So I think in general, yeah, those are really just direct inspo, and just I wanted to build this feeling to where you really were pushed over the edge. 'Cause a lot of times you want to tell your kid, I just need a break from you, but you know you can't say that. You know how
mm,
much that will hurt,
mm,
but sometimes you're pushed to that limit to where like you can't help but say something.
yeah.
And so just like how do you get the trust of your kid back, you know? And so really it's just I wanted to push forward a message that like really cherish the moments you have with your kids now, because you never know what could happen. Like you never know when Mr. Crockett could be right there.
Oh God.
So
I feel like parents are gonna watch that one and just hold their kid a little extra tight
yeah,
when
and
they're
I've
watching
gotten a
TV.
lot of responses like that from people, and just even as people who are friends with Cam, like Cam is definitely not on their babysitter list anymore. I won't be having my kids watching kid shows anymore. So yeah.
And
Mhm.
with the name of our show being Actors with Issues, the reason for that name is that we always like to talk to our actors and artists of all types that come on our show about the sort of the struggles that artists deal with that could some light can be shed on for our audience of young actors. So what comes to mind as a career obstacle that you've had to that you've had to face before, or is it maybe something that you know now about performing in show business that you wish you learned earlier on?
What I wish I knew earlier was to really just trust yourself and create your own way. Because earlier, I'm just relying on certain agents, managers to help guide my career, but then
Mm,
you're waiting, and you may be waiting for longer than you want to. And then you
mm,
see other people go forward. And so, like, why not take that risk? I
mm.
think in general. And so like me wishing I knew that earlier, to get out in front of the camera earlier, to really start creating on this side earlier. That's something I wish I trusted myself to do earlier in the process. Yeah.
And as far as looking ahead, your bucket list, do you want to do a horror feature? Do you want to maybe expand this story into something longer or other sort of subgenres of horror that you want to delve into?
Yeah, I would love to make a feature film of this.
Mm,
Would love to make a series of features of it, a la to like Nightmare on Elm Street, certain
mm,
things like that. Because at the end of the day, Mr. Crockett never dies. But in general, like I would love to do series like Mike Flanagan. You know, I would love to
yeah,
just be able to create horror and nightmares in general to where people are the true horror fans are like, I'm excited to see the next Brandon Espy film. So
yeah.
that's a heavy goal of mine that like, I hold true. And like I have a lot of nightmares saved up that I want to, show to the world. So it's all about just me getting certain things together to make that happen.
Awesome. Well, before we go, we just have a couple more Quick questions. Fill in the blank. If I weren't working in the arts, I'd be.
Man. I'd be an agent.
That's always interested me. Also, it's like on the managerial side, helping build
Yeah.
careers and things like that. But what is the best advice you've ever gotten?
Create your own path.
And the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Um, I say, and do as you're told.
And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
I would say be relentless in your pursuit.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to chatting with us, and congrats on getting your short as part of this year's collection. It's really great, and again, amazing collection overall with everyone else's short. So congrats.
Thank you, Juan. I'm excited to be with that whole collection. Honored. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to give you a follow on social, Instagram, where can our lovely fans find you?
Instagram at SB, my last name twice, and Twitter at SB or Nah. So SB and ORNAI.
Awesome.
NAH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. And folks, you know the drill. You can find us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow at Juaniala Official. And you can find more of our show on YouTube podcasts, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts every Monday, and bonus episodes on Thursdays. And don't miss Mr. Crockett as part of the latest season of Bite Size Halloween on Hulu. I'm Juaniala. This is Actors with Issues, and we'll see you next week.